I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, cheated on me. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5. When we first got together, she seemed perfect, smart, funny, a little bitchy, but in that charming way women can be. I thought I knew everything about her, or at least I thought I did. We had a good life, or so I believed. We bought a house, gotten a dog, and I'd been saving up for this big dream, retiring early and sailing around the coast, exploring uncharted waters. I'd worked my ass off for that boat. It was my pride and joy, a 40-foot cruiser I'd poured my savings into. I even named it Freedom, because that's what I thought I was buying. Freedom to escape, to explore, to finally live the life I deserved. But something started to feel off a few months ago. Lisa's behavior shifted. She became more dismissive, more bitchy when I tried to talk about the boat or our plans for the retirement trip. She'd brush me off, say she was too busy, or that I was obsessed with the boat. She'd spend weekends away with her friends more than usual, and her phone was glued to her hand. She'd get defensive when I asked who she was texting, always claiming it was just her sister or a coworker. But I caught her lying once, just a small thing. She said she was at a yoga class, but I saw her car parked outside a local bar I knew she didn't go to. That was the first real sign that something was wrong. Then came the little things, forgotten dates, unexplained absences, and her phone disappearing every time I walked into the room. I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. I mean, I knew women could be sneaky, but I never expected Lisa to cheat on me. Not with someone like that sailing instructor, Mike, who'd been teaching us how to handle the boat. He was supposed to be helping us prep for our retirement voyage, for God's sake. I trusted him, trusted her, to teach us everything about navigating uncharted waters. And now I found out she'd been sneaking around with him on weekends, the very guy who was supposed to be guiding us on this dream journey. The worst part, I didn't even have proof at first, just gut feelings, odd conversations, and her evasiveness. But then I started noticing her phone records, texts from Mike late at night, canceled plans, and some very obvious wink-wink messages. I felt betrayed, not just because she was cheating, but because she lied so damn well. She'd always been good at covering her tracks, lying about small stuff, turning everything around on me if I ever questioned her. That's what made it so hard. I was angry, yes, but mostly hurt. How could she do this? How could she betray me, the guy who worked his ass off to make this dream happen, just to have some weekend fling with her sailing instructor? And here's the kicker. She'd insisted during one of our last serious talks that she loved me, that she wasn't interested in Mike, that I was just paranoid. She had this bitchy smile on her face as if I was the crazy one for doubting her. She told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that I needed to get over myself. But I knew better. I had seen the texts, the late-night calls, the way she'd suddenly become busy whenever I tried to bring up the boat or our future. That's when I realized I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here and pretend everything was okay. I had to find out the truth, even if it tore everything apart. So I started digging. I couldn't just sit around waiting for the bomb to drop. I had to see for myself. I installed a tracking app on her phone, not to stalk her, but to get a clearer picture of her movements. It wasn't long before I saw her heading out on weekends, always with a vague yoga class or meeting a friend excuse. But I knew better. I'd seen her car parked somewhere she didn't usually go, and now I was connecting the dots. Then I found out she'd been meeting Mike at this marina nearby, always in the evenings, always when she thought I wasn't looking. My stomach clenched every time I saw her sneaking around. One afternoon, I decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I planned to catch her in the act. I told her I was working late and to enjoy her yoga class, but I stayed hidden behind a row of bushes near the marina. I waited for what felt like hours, nervously clutching my phone, heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw her, fancy yoga mat slung over her shoulder, suspiciously flirtatious smile, walking straight toward Mike's boat. I couldn't believe what I was watching. My wife, my partner, sneaking off with this guy who was supposed to be teaching us about sailing but was clearly teaching her something else. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew that if I did it then, I might lose it entirely. So I waited until she came back to the house. When she finally strolled in, whistling that bitchy, overly confident tune she always did when she thought she was getting away with something, I just looked at her. She was surprised to see me, but that sneer was still on her face. "Where the hell have you been?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She spun around, giving me that "oh, you're just paranoid" look, and told me she'd been at her sister's house. I knew she was lying. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the slight tremor in her voice. She was caught, and I wasn't going to let her spin her bullshit now. "Who were you with today?" I demanded. She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "God, you're so paranoid. I was at my sister, like I told you. You need to relax, seriously. You're making this into a huge thing that doesn't exist." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I pulled out the evidence, the texts, the location data, the photos I'd secretly taken when she wasn't paying attention. Her face went pale for a second, then she snapped back into her usual bitchy attitude. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're just jealous because I'm finally getting some excitement in my life. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of that damn boat, we wouldn't be having this problem." The words hit me like a punch in the gut, and that's when I realized I had to decide what to do next. But right now, all I felt was a sick, sinking feeling that everything I believed in was crumbling. After that night, I couldn't sleep. The image of her sneaking off with Mike kept replaying in my head, her sneering, her lies, the way she looked at him like he was the only thing that mattered. I felt sick. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her bullshit. I knew I had to confront her again, this time more directly, more brutally. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd ever expected. I had trusted her with my whole life, and she'd thrown it away for some weekend fuckfist with her sailing instructor. The next morning, I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I sat her down in the living room, trying to keep my voice steady, but inside I was rage raw. I told her I knew what she'd been doing, showed her the evidence, and asked her flat out, "Are you cheating on me with Mike?" Her face didn't even flicker. She just looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was better than everyone else. "Oh, please." She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. I'm just friends with him. You're being paranoid. You always jump to conclusions." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like talking to a wall. I felt so angry, so betrayed, that I couldn't even find the words for what I wanted to say. But I knew I had to hear her out, even if I already knew the answer. I pressed her further, asking if she'd been with him, if they'd been sleeping together. And her lie came flying out. "We've just gone sailing a few times, that's all. It's not what you think." But I knew better. Her tone, her gestures, the way she avoided eye contact, everything betrayed her. She was lying through her teeth. Her excuses only made me angrier. She blamed me for being obsessed with the boat, said I'd been acting crazy ever since I got it. "You're just jealous because I finally found someone who's better at sailing than you," she sneered. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Her words, her attitude, they were so dismissive, so bitchy. I honestly wondered how I ever married someone who could be so cruel, so manipulative. It was like I was in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to wake up. I told her she had to choose me or Mike. She scoffed at that, said I was overreacting again, that she didn't even really like Mike that much, just having some fun. But I could see through her bullshit now. She was trying to save face, to make herself look innocent. The thing was, I didn't care any more about what she said or what she claimed. All I knew was that I felt broken, like the trust that held us together had been smashed into 1,000 pieces. The betrayal was raw, fresh, and I was struggling to breathe under the weight of it. That day, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. I'd spent years working toward that boat, dreaming of sailing away into the sunset, and now I saw it all crumbling. My trust was shattered, and the woman I thought I knew was a stranger. I couldn't believe she'd go so far, lie so blatantly, just for some weekends with her sailing instructor. The pain was a mix of anger, sadness, and a crushing sense of betrayal. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could lie, cheat, and still look me in the eye like she was innocent. I tried to hold it together, but the truth kept hitting me like a ton of bricks. She'd been lying from the start. I'd been so blind, so convinced we had a good life. I thought I was building something real, something solid. But she'd been sneaking around behind my back, flirting with Mike, maybe even fucking him, while I was working my ass off to make our dreams come true. I never thought I'd be in a situation where the woman I loved would betray me like this, so openly, so blatantly. It's a wound that doesn't heal easy, and I felt it deep in my bones. Eventually, I knew I couldn't just stay quiet. I had to figure out what I was going to do about her. The anger boiled up, and I started thinking about all the ways I could retaliate, confront her more, call her out in front of friends, maybe even destroy that boat I'd worked so hard to get. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't fix anything. I had to be smarter than her, had to think about my own future, even if it was just a little bit. The thought of her and Mike sneaking around, making plans for their weekend escapades on my boat made my stomach turn. That boat was supposed to be my escape, the symbol of my independence, my dream, but now it felt like a prison. I decided I needed some space to breathe, to think clearly. I told her I was taking some time away to think about everything. She threw a fit, called me paranoid, said I was ruining everything because I was jealous and possessive. Typical Lisa, always dismissing my feelings, always making it about me being insecure. But I wasn't insecure anymore. I was furious. I wanted to hurt her, to make her feel the pain she'd inflicted on me. I knew I couldn't just walk away without doing something, but I also didn't want to blow everything up in the heat of the moment. I had to come up with a plan, something to make her regret ever crossing that line, to show her that she could never get away with this without consequences. I was angry, but I also knew I needed to be strategic. I spent the next few days ruminating, trying to keep my cool while I plotted. Every time I saw her, I wanted to explode too. Scream and curse and tear her apart, but I held back. I had to think about what I really wanted, whether to fight for us or just walk away. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't stay with someone who thought so little of me, who treated me like I was nothing. The betrayal was too deep, the wounds too fresh. Still, I also knew I had to be careful, because Lisa was good at lying, and I couldn't let her manipulate me into doing something I'd regret forever. That's when I realized I had to get proof, full proof, to make her face what she'd done, and I was ready to do whatever it took. Over the next few days, I laid out my plan carefully. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without solid evidence. I started sneaking around myself, checking her phone, her emails, anything that might give me more proof. I also enlisted a friend who was good with tech, someone I trusted, to set up a hidden camera in the living room, just in case she slipped up. I knew Lisa well enough to know she'd try to cover her tracks, so I had to be smart. Every time I saw her acting suspicious, I felt this mix of anger and heartbreak tighten in my chest. It was almost like watching a slow-motion train wreck I couldn't stop. One night, I got my chance. She was out again, supposedly meeting a friend, but I knew better. I'd already checked the camera footage that day. It showed her sneaking out the back door around sunset, heading straight toward the marina. I followed her from a distance, heart pounding. When I arrived, I saw her and Mike in the boat, their shadows cast by the moonlight. They were kissing, touching, doing all the things she'd denied. It was like getting punched in the gut. I'd always suspected, but seeing it with my own eyes was a different level of pain. I stood there, frozen, watching them. My mind raced. What to do? I could storm on board, confront her right then, or I could wait until morning and do it face to face. Honestly, I was so angry I could have smashed that boat into pieces. But I knew I needed to keep my composure. I snapped a few photos just in case. That night, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train of betrayal. The woman I trusted, the partner I loved, was out there with him, kissing, probably fucking, while I was at home planning a future that was now dead in the water. The next day, I confronted her again. I showed her the photos, the footage, everything. Her face went pale, but then she shot back with that same bitchy smirk. "You're crazy," she said. "You're just jealous. I don't know what you think you saw, but you're imagining things." I felt my blood boil. How could she lie so effortlessly? I told her I had enough evidence to take this to the police if I wanted, but honestly, I didn't care about that anymore. I just wanted her gone, to make her see that she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. Her reaction. She got defensive, started crying. Fake tears, I knew. She begged me to forgive her, said it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything. She called herself a victim of my paranoia, said I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle her freedom. I wanted to scream at her, tell her she was a selfish bitch, that she destroyed everything we built. But I just looked at her, feeling hollow inside, realizing I'd been naive to think she loved me, to think I mattered. That's when I knew I had to make a choice: stay and fight for a marriage that was already dead, or walk away and finally take back my life. After that confrontation, I knew there was no turning back. The trust I once had was shattered beyond repair. Lisa begged, threw tantrums, even tried to guilt-trip me into staying, but I saw through all her manipulative bullshit. I looked at her with cold eyes and told her that I was done. Done with her lies, done with the betrayal, done with pretending everything was okay when it was. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I realized I'd been clinging to a dream that was nothing but a house of cards. She had been cheating on me with Mike, using my boat, our dream, to hide her affair. The breakup was messy, as you'd expect. She screamed, called me crazy, accused me of ruining her life, but honestly, I didn't care. I felt this strange mix of relief and despair. Relief because I finally saw the truth and could walk away from the lies, despair because I'd lost someone I thought I loved. I packed up my things, took back my keys, and left that house knowing that I was finally free. The boat, that symbol of my dreams, suddenly felt like a coffin. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding myself. I sold the boat, no longer a symbol of freedom but a reminder of betrayal. I moved out, found a new place, and slowly started to piece my life back together. It wasn't easy. There were nights I'd lie awake, thinking about her, about Mike, about everything that went wrong. But I also learned a lot. Mainly that I'm stronger than I thought, and I won't stand for someone treating me like garbage. Looking back, I realize I got caught up in a fantasy, believing that the woman I loved was perfect. Turns out she was just good at hiding who she really was. I should have seen the signs earlier, but I was blinded by love and hope. Now I see clearly. Trust is everything in a relationship, and once that's broken, it's nearly impossible to fix. I don't hate her. I pity her honestly, because she lost me, and I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, even if it's not with me. If I could give any advice, it's this: pay attention. Don't ignore the little signs, and don't let yourself be blindsided by someone's lies. Be honest with yourself about what you deserve, and don't settle for someone who treats you like an option. Because in the end, the truth always comes out. And when it does, you better be ready to face it, no matter how painful it might be.